Good morning, everybody. It's September 24th. I don't really have journals to read. I mean, I do, but I read them in the session. And I thought I would just let y'all hear those as I talk to Jon about them. I wanted to talk about something else. A friend of mine, another SRA survivor, we were talking just a couple days ago, and she was mentioning how that before all this memory recall and meeting Jon and doing her sessions and stuff, that she used to, go to church and read her Bible, and she was all about being in the Word, but that she just wasn't spending the time with it, and she was feeling a little bad, a little guilty. And I told her, I said, when I was hot and heavy in my memory work, and what I mean by hot and heavy is just a lot of it coming at you all at once, and body memories and just all the stuff, and you're just overwhelmed. I said, I didn't read a whole lot of the Bible either. And it was my first time through the Bible, so it was new for me. But I said I might have read a chapter a night and not touched it for another 10 or 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever. And so I think there was even a point where I didn't even really get into it for 2 or 3 months. But it was once I got the heavy, hard, full, whatever, and things started to calm down, that I was able to get back into the Bible. And that when I told her that, she said that made her feel better. But what I also said was, I said, honestly, I think that this work that we are doing, this memory work, I consider it a form of prayer. Maybe not prayer, but a communion and communication with God. And I told her that, and she said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, because I said, who else is it that's giving us these memories? It's not like we said, okay, I'm ready to turn on the blank spots in my life. That wasn't us. We were amnesiac. God said it's time. And so he gave you your first memory, and so I consider this work a communion with God, a conversation with God. There might not be words or whatever, but he's the one that it's just like what comes first, then second, then third, and what's going to follow after each thing. And because he's going to know what you can handle and at what level you can handle it and in what order for it to make sense. Even though half the time it doesn't make sense, there will come a point, there did for me, where things started to make sense and I saw the progression of events. It's like I was reading in a book that most people will remember their sexual abuse first. And they don't really remember the SRA till later. And even for me, within the SRA process, excuse me, my skin's itching. Even within the SRA memories, the easier stuff came first. And then as I could confront more and more and more of it, and the uglier it became, then I could face something even more horrendous, process that, and I could face something even more horrendous. God doles out the memories in the order in which you can handle it and digest it and process it. It's not just this biological, your body memory, whatever that's turning on. It's God that's doing it. For me, I didn't even remember. Well, I guess I did, but I remember the SRA. But once my husband baptized me, I believe just right now, thinking about it in this moment, that that was God's way of going, okay, bam, now you can do it because I needed you saved first. I needed you saved before you remembered taking on a demon or facing down a demon or having one placed inside of me. He knew my past. He knows every last moment of it. I don't. But he needed me to be baptized first so that I could face that. And there was something else I was telling her that I said, I think, not I think, I know for me personally, I have 4 or 5 incidents where things were pretty awful and demons were being breathed into me that my perpetrators wanted me to accept a demon. In those moments, after I got past the upsetting, the disturbing, the horrifying memories, then I could remember that moment where Jesus stepped in and said no. And that happened to me 4 or 5 times. And I told her, I said, I am going to guarantee you, and I'm going to guarantee all of you out there with SRA because it's satanic ritual abuse. Satan isn't anti-Buddha or anti-Krishna or anti, Zeus or any of these gods that are out there that people worship. Satan is only anti-Christianity and anti-Jesus. So in these moments where they want us to embrace an entity and worship that entity and embody that entity, that demon, Jesus would come down and stop the whole thing. Now, granted, all the demons would leave and flee, and the humans would be left, and I'd still have to go through whatever these humans needed to do and then get me back to my bedroom for school the next day. So there was still the rest of that moment in time or incident, ritual, whatever, but Jesus stopped me from being possessed. Because when I was a kid, I was not baptized. Even in my 20s, I was not baptized. Well, I was, but not conscious of it. So I could have been possessed. I could have been led down that path to become a, you know, uh, practicing witch who um, perpetrated on other people, who, you know, um, even though it wasn't in my heart, I had parts that embraced that. And Jesus stepped in and said no, because Jesus had a plan, a destiny for my life. And for that thing to have occurred would have interrupted my destiny. It would have changed it. And not because I chose it, but because it was chosen for me. And so God's divine providence stepped in and said no. And so I told her, I said, I am willing to bet every single SRA person out there has one of these moments at least. Because what's going on there? My counselor said this to me once and it kind of blew my mind. He says, you were walking through the shadow of death. That prayer, Psalm 23, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. That was us. We walked through the shadow of death, and God was there. God was there in the moments that counted, in the moments that would have inextricably altered our lives off of God's destiny for us as an individual that he created. So, and I said this to her. She goes, "Wow, I never thought about it like that." And I go, "Yeah." I said, "I got 4 or 5 of these incidents." I said, "That's because I've been able to get through the upsetting, the disturbing, the horrifying memories to clear it out and then find that moment of peace that that it might have only lasted 30 seconds or 1 minute or 1 second, but Jesus was there. Jesus stepped in. Did he save me? Yes, from being possessed, and yes, from being inalterably, maybe I would have become reprobate in those moments and not have been able to be saved later. But Jesus stepped in. And I remember listening to someone Emma interviewed. She said that she was up on an altar doing witchcraft stuff and being a high priestess or something. And I'm assuming she was probably a teenager or older. I don't remember. I don't even remember the person, but she said that she had all these demons bowing to her, bowing to her. She said, but later, when she remembered the entire incident, she realized Jesus was standing behind her. And that's who all these demons were bowing to. So that for her, that was about pumping up her ego to the point where, look at this, I've got demons that bow to me. Pump up your ego and all this whatever, for her to think that she's some big badass, satanic witch or whatever the case may be. But God stepped in for her in that moment to alter, to change the trajectory things were going. He's done it for me. And my friend that I was talking to, and she went, "Oh my gosh, I just remembered something." And she said, "I remember this before, but it just popped in my head while you're talking about it." She said she was 3 years old, undergoing a horrific thing, a heinous, awful thing. She said, "Diana, all of a sudden, I was with I think she said that Jesus took her hand and took her to a beautiful garden with grass and trees and little animals all over. And she said there was a little table there with a tea set. And her and all the animals were sitting in the chair having tea together. And Jesus was standing there and they were all having a tea party." And she goes, "I never really thought about that before." I said, "Well, yeah, you dissociated from the trauma. So where did you go at 3 years old?" I think first God gives us the gift of dissociation, first of all. And then second of all, he literally gave you a tea party in what I would call, she didn't call it this, but the Garden of Eden with animals that she felt safe with. And Jesus there having tea. They're all having a little tea party while her body is undergoing what it's undergoing. And yeah, I'm sure she's split, and there's a part that embodies that awful, but she also has that part that's split, that Jesus took to the beautiful garden, and she got to have a tea party and feel safe. And when she told me that, I said, "Oh my gosh, I remember when I was 3 having a bestiality rape, all 3 places." And I said, what happened was I would dissociate and I'd go lay on God's lap. And I didn't know what was going on down there. I just knew that I was laying on God's lap and I would take a nap. And God held me on his lap while I napped. Then they would change places. I'd go into my body for a moment, realize what was going on, dissociate again and go back and sit on God's lap again. I said, and that happened 3 times for each 3 orifices. And I said, 2 times I think I just slept on his lap while he caressed my hair. But the third time, I remember me and God had this very long conversation. We were just chit-chatting away. My little 3-year-old self and God, I'm just sitting on his lap and we're just chit-chatting away. And it's one of the most beautiful moments of my life. And I was 3, being horrifically abused, as was my friend. But God, Jesus, pulled us out. And yeah, we split. We got that personality that has that thing, and we got to process that. But we also have that beautiful memory where we were walking through the shadow of death, and God came and comforted us. And I told her, I said, I am willing to guarantee every single last one of us has at least one of those moments. That God did not abandon us. He did not, for every single abuse, was he there? No. But he was there when it mattered, when it counted. I think he was there when it would have twisted us to the point of becoming reprobate and thus not able to be saved. I think God steps in those moments where he knows it's not our choice to become reprobate. So he allows us, gives us that grace and says, here, come sit with me. Sit on my lap. Come, let's have a tea party in the Garden of Eden. You know? So when I say my prayer and ask for God to give you exactly what you need when you need it, I think he already is. He did when we were going through it, and he does now as we're remembering it. I think those moments where he steps in is what allows us to get to hear. First of all, the dissociation, the gift of dissociation, that we could survive to get here. But now, as we're remembering, and as I say, I give you the courage, the strength to get past the upsetting, the disturbing, the horrifying, the heinous, and get through it. Work out your stuff with Ted to remember those individual personal moments back then where God was there as we walked through the valley of the shadow of death. So I guess I just wanted to share that with you, that conversation. My friend, she's like, oh, I never thought about it like that. And I said, yeah. So as your memories are coming, he's going to give it to you exactly how you can handle it, when you can handle it, build the momentum up, build it down, give you the body memories. He's guiding your process. He's there. He's always been there. Um, I know this is not one of my super long talks, but I just thought it was really important to share that it wasn't just me. Like for me, let me pull up some of my incidents. Share. Okay. So let me get to my stuff, parts. I need to do it this way because I highlighted them in yellow. so that I could remember where they were. Oh, right. Okay. So the first one, now let me pull up my map so you can see. All right, the first one is spirits. Oh my goodness. I have 281. Okay, let me go to Bonnie first. Okay. This this was an incident where I was 3 weeks old. We were in a cave in a ritual, and I was drowned in blood almost to death. And under that blood, I was fighting like crazy. That was Michael. I still don't know if this is, I like to think of this as the Archangel Michael embodying me and fighting, because he has followed me in my life. But he imbued in me the warrior, the fighter to survive that. I also split into who I call spirit. Jesus was there. Michael was there. They kept me alive. Yeah, I would say, I kept me alive. No, a 3 week old baby being drowned in blood, and then afterwards, not warmed up or given clothing, but sitting in a cold, damp cave. I should have died, and I didn't. The Spirit of God came into me, as well as the fighter. So that's the first time God stepped in for me. The next time, let me get my chart here. So that's spirit. I was 5. Let me find Vitelia. Vitelia, Vitel. Yeah. Ah, is it Vitelia? Vitella? Um, there she is. Excuse me. Oh, that choked me up a little bit. This is, I've told y'all about this ceremony. We're in ritual. My grandmother gets in my face. She curses me and gives me a blessing by her God in this ritual. And she wants to breathe a demon into me. And I look up. That's why this image is her looking up. I look up and Jesus was there. He stepped in. No one else saw him but me. He entered my body and he projectile vomited into my grandmother's face. And my grandmother challenged him and said, "Who dare defy me?" She thought it was another god, another, pagan god, whoever. And Jesus spoke through my body. I remember having hot and cold fluctuations, and I believe that was the spirits fighting inside. But when Jesus entered, the demon left or was not allowed to enter. He vomited my grandma, so she said, "Who dare defy me?" And Jesus said, I gotta find the quote here because I tend to forget it. Um, he said something like, I am, let me see, what the heck? Dang it. Anyway, something along the lines of I am that I am, or I am Jesus, this child is mine. Yeah, she says, who dares defy me? That's when Jesus came and scared them all away. Um, so you have this, and it always chokes me up that I would be worthy of such a thing, but we all are. I mean, I can't find it, but basically he said something like, I am Jesus, or I am that I am, and this child is mine. He claimed me. He claimed me. And at that point, my grandmother and everybody left the room. They were all freaked out. They went and hid. And I was left there on the floor by myself until my sisters were made to come out and help me. And they didn't really, and they were resistant because they were all freaked out anyway. So that's Vitella and Vance. And I chose her name. His was because it was vomit. And he changed it to Vance, like advanced guard, Vitellia because the vitality, she just saw Jesus. Vance felt him inside. So there's those two guys. So let me find the next one. Oh, Rocky. Y'all are familiar with Rocky. Who's Riley now? Ryle. Is it E? Yeah. Riley is the one that had the black mass on the riverbank where I had to marry Satan and all this stuff. Anyway, God gave me an opening. The boy I was supposed to marry pushed. I wasn't sexy enough for him or whatever, and he got disgusted and pushed me down and walked off, and I had a moment alone. And in that moment, God, I fell on my butt and my elbows. God said, see that rock over there? Scoot over to it. Go hide in that rock. Take your robe and cover yourself. There was a rock with a bush over it. He gave me the window of opportunity to scurry away. This is in the middle of a massive orgy, hundreds of people, maybe not hundreds, but 100 at least. But he gave me the window of opportunity to escape to a rock under a bush and hide there for 6 or 8 hours. And yeah, I had to witness my mom being abused and my sisters and my dad reveling in their whatever, but it was God that gave me that window of opportunity. It was God that told me, don't move, don't breathe, don't make a sound, be as quiet as a mouse, pee your pants if you have to pee your pants. But he cloaked me in the middle of a satanic orgy with 100 or more people, and I was never found, and I should have been. I wasn't found. God did that. What's the next one? That's Riley. And how old was I there? 6. So I'm 3 weeks old, and then I'm 5, and then I'm 6. And honestly, I think that incident was for me to know and remember what my mother went through so that as an adult, I wouldn't hate her or judge her because I understood that she was abused just as terribly and just as badly as I was and everyone else was, and helped me to understand why she was the way she was. My sisters will never understand it because they don't have their memories, but I do. and I know my mother's in heaven. So the next one came when I was 20. This is the Himmler's Castle incident. Let me pull these up. Well, I'll look at it here first. So what happened first was, and these are happening in tandem with each other, but the sex slave had to go into 12 different rooms and be a sex slave in 12 different ways, and then switch into my killer and have to be a killer in 12 different ways. Once that was all over, then I was taken to the 13th room that had a red eye in it, and there was a judge in there. So let me find WREN. Okay. So they take me into a room, and I remember the first thing I saw was, and I had an actual image of this when I remembered it, just this massive red eyeball looking around in the top of the room. I walked in, and there is it's a judge at a lectern. It was a black woman, obviously part of the cult, whatever, to be judged as a ritual. Then when I'm in there, Michael Aquino takes the Bible and uses the book of Hosea to judge me and creates 20 different parts where I have to confess my sins to him. These are all the parts based on the quote from the book of Hosea, and created 20 different parts. And once that was done, I was to, yeah, I was to accept into me. Oh, once that was done, then I had to sign a contract. Now I'm 20 years old here. I'm not 3 weeks old or 5 years old or 6 years old. I'm 20. A signed contract in my blood as belonging to the Lord Beast, meaning Aquino and, obviously Satan, in a ritual in Himmler's castle. It's this room that has the flame. It's the basement under the sunroom. Anyhow, after that, then they take me to, oh geez. Then they take me to the room upstairs where they can intimidate me into silence, but they also, wait. Yeah, also did another ritual there, and this is where, so anyway, I got 12 guns coming at me, or is it 13? I can't remember. And then 13 swords coming at me, and I'm threatened, and it's this whole confusing thing. And so Aquino finally does, there's the end of the intimidation by the, all the Satanists in the room. And Aquino starts doing incantations, and the Spirit of the Lord came in the room. Now, no one else saw him, but I did. Let me see if I can show you the sketch that I did. Okay, yeah, I got guns being pointed at me in 12 different locations at the same time. I got swords, the same thing done with swords. I get kicked to the floor, kicked to my knees, on my face at the feet of my Lord. I had to lick his disgusting feet. And they're looking worse than this. Then, after I do that, he levitates me off the ground. He didn't levitate me horizontally like this, but he levitated me vertically. I'm screaming because I don't know what the hell is going on. And as I'm screaming and looking him up, uh, Aquino is sucking the terror out of me with his breath and wanting to breathe a demon into me because I've just signed a contract. I've been a sex slave. I just had all this programming, hours and hours of it. And as he wants to have a demon enter me, I opened my eyes and I was screaming and I looked up and I saw Jesus. And when Jesus entered that room, yes, the spirit entered the room first and was like scoping out the situation. But at this moment in time where I might have become reprobate and unable to be saved, Jesus stepped in. I saw Jesus blow away all the evil spirits and I dropped to the floor because when he entered the room, all the demons in the space and in the humans that were there left. And yeah, you still had Aquino and all these people there with their evil hearts, but it was just their human evil hearts. And a lot of them, kind of took off too. But I dropped to the floor, and then things proceeded, and they dragged me out of the room and got me back to the military barracks. But that's Spirit and Celestia. So what is that? Five where God interceded 5 times. And so I guess I want you all to know that I I am willing to bet you all have these moments. You just don't remember them yet. You've got to get through, and not necessarily get through the worst, because my friend remembered her tea party without having to go through the awful, horrible, terrible. So God restored that memory to her, I think, and for me, something to hang on to as you go through it. So I guess I just want to share the all with that. It's not just me. Other people have had those moments, and I'm willing to wager you have as well. So I guess that's it. Kind of all over the place. I'm a little dissociated today. I'm coming off of a cold. Thank you, my friend, for sharing that story with me. And thank you for being my friend. Both of you out there. Love you both. Um, And for everyone else, I'll say, Dear Jesus, and for all of us, Dear Jesus, please give us exactly what we need when we need it. The video, the interview, the song, the book, the prayer, whatever it is, exactly what we need when we need it to be able to put the puzzle of our life together. Help us as we go through these terrible memories. Help us remember those moments when you stepped in while while we walked through the valley of the shadow of death, that you were there. You were there. And we thank you, Father. We thank you for your beauty and your grace. Father, I ask you to comfort and just guide each of us as we go so that we may reclaim the image, our life, the image that you made us in, your beautiful, glorious image, that we can embody it and claim it and live it, remembering our entire life and being empowered, knowing what we've gone through, and that we're still here with all of those skills and abilities because you blessed us with all of those skills and ability. In Jesus' name, amen. And I truly believe that. I ask God now for the past few weeks. I thank him for every single minute of my life, for every single moment, ugly or beautiful. Because in remembering that, I realize that my parts have skills and abilities I had no idea that I had. Not just that, but we have a spiritual awareness that the average person does not have. I've said this many times, but we know what evil looks like, sounds like, smells like. You know, the vibe you get on your skin, the temperature, the humidity, the tones, all of it. We know that, but because we're amnesic to it, we can't draw on it. But as we remember and process and claim those moments, those memories, embrace those parts, we get to embody all of their skills and abilities and have them available for use consciously for the here and now. And I'm not saying for to make our life better or get more money or whatever, but excuse me, to be in service of God. I don't know where y'all are at with this, but I honestly think end times are I'm gonna see them in my lifetime. And so we're gonna have to walk through the valley of the shadow of death again as we approach that. Obviously, we all feel it, we all see it, the evil that's in this world right now, the paganism, all of it that's going on. I think God chose us, or we chose with God. God said, do you want to go live that life? And this is what you're going to go through, but it's going to take you out on this other side here. I remember God asking me that before I stepped into this life. I don't know what happened before, but I remember him saying to me, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, yes. I think it's for now so that we can help other people go through whatever the end times is going to bring. Anyway, I don't want to get gloom and doom, but there is a blessing that goes with this. And I guess that's what I'm trying to convey. An absolute certainty. Once you remember those Jesus moments and those God moments, you will never doubt the existence and power of Jesus again, ever. You will never forget it. And our certainty in that is going to affect others. And as well as for ourselves, when you get in those moments where everything seems horrible, you can remind yourself, that's right. I got to go have a tea party with Jesus. So, anyhow, God bless you all. It's my sincerest wish and desire for God to show you your tea party moment so that you have that to hang on to as you go through this. I love you all. Take care, and I'll see you next time.